First thing we want to establish too with the American West, when we're looking at it as a process, is it's a line that continuously moves as society grows, as it develops, as American society grows and develops. So at first you have the eastern seaboard of the United States, the first 13 original colonies, then you get the Proclamation line, right? This becomes the West as colonial America is wanting to expand further and further in the West. Later, in the development of the Republic, of when we actually became a nation state, you have the Louisiana Purchase, and then the lands that were gained out of the Mexican-American War as well, right? So this line is continuously moving, right? So it's not a static line, it moves. As society develops, as it creates hierarchies, as it creates established norms, the West moves further to the West, and leaving anything east of that line outside of what we consider the West, right? That's an important distinction to keep in mind when you're looking at the West as a process, not as a place. We'll look at it as a place in the last learning objective, mainly focusing on Native Americans. So just wanted to establish that at first. Okay, there are two types of frontiers that we want to keep in mind. There's the landed frontier, which existed from 1607 to 1890. So 1607 was the founding of Jamestown, all the way to 1890 when the frontier, according to the Census Bureau, the U.S. Census Bureau, was officially closed. Right. So again, this is West as process. Again, this is from 1607 to 1890. That is the duration of when that line was moving. As it moved forward, again, it was establishing hierarchy and structure to society, established governments. But beyond that line, beyond the frontier line, it was no man's land. It was up for grabs. And again, that rugged individual, that self-made man who was pragmatic, who was the fittest of them all, had not only the ability to survive, but had the ability to thrive in this type of harsh, unestablished environment. The second type of environment is the industrial environment, right? And this began to develop in the United States with the first, and then more significantly, the second industrial revolution. So the second industrial revolution begins to emerge in the 1860s, and the type of people that are going to emerge out of this are people like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Mellon and Andrew Carnegie. And this industrial frontier continues to this very day, right? So people are able to take advantage of the opportunities within the industrial frontier are people like Mark Zuckerberg or the late Steve Jobs, right? So people who are in an established industry after the landed frontier has gone. So there are two patterns to the frontier. The first is the primary frontier. This is the frontier that we're familiar with when we think of the word frontier. This is the gold rush, the going out and taking control of the resources. This is when an individual doesn't need a lot of money, a lot of investment. It just takes hard work, it takes thrift, energy, ingenuity to go out there and to face the harsh environments of the frontier. The second pattern of the frontier is the period where the individual has a much harder time being successful. This is when we pass into a business frontier. This is when it takes money to invest. So thinking about the example of Steve Jobs, right? He began in the computer business when it was a frontier out of his parents' garage, and from there he was able to move and develop that industry into the multi-billion-dollar industry it is. When he moved that industry into the industry it is now, this is what we're talking about. This is the secondary frontier, right? So it would be insane right now to try to upstart a personal computer business, right? It's well too established. I mean, you could try, but it would be a very difficult thing to do, right? Back in the 70s, all it took was a little imagination, some hard work, and some interest, and one could really get their foot in the door.